This happened a few months ago. I was 35 years old, recently leaving my life in the CIA to become a data consultant. I thought it would be easy. It wasn't. My little apartment in the old downtown high-rise felt so small. The streets outside were alive with sounds, but I could never quite find my place in it. One night, I sat down at my laptop, working late as usual. I'd always been the diligent type. As I typed, I noticed something flicker on my screen. A shadow? I thought it was just a glitch. Then I heard voices, faint, distant whispers. I didn't understand it. I told myself it must be some interference, and shrugged it off. I think I should have paid more attention. In the following days, things got weird. The voices returned, louder and more urgent. What was happening? Cold chills ran down my spine. But I told myself it was just an old apartment. Then I noticed other things, neighbors watching me too intently. One day, Mrs. Thompson, across the hall, turned her head quickly to avoid making eye contact when I passed. I wasn't sure if I was being paranoid, but it felt off. One evening, a package slipped under my door. It was unmarked. I stared at it before finally picking it up. My heart raced. Inside was nothing but a blank notebook. I shook my head. I thought it was a prank. So I tossed it away. Still, the next night, another knock echoed in my apartment. It was late, and I froze. Just that soft but persistent sound. I felt like I had stepped back into the shadows, even in my own home. The voices returned, now overwhelming. I thought maybe I was losing it. I didn't sleep that night. I could almost make out words, but they slipped away like water through my fingers. Days turned into a blur. Each morning, I woke exhausted, filled with dread about returning to my desk. I decided to confront my paranoia. I glanced out the window and swore I saw someone standing across the street, staring at me. I blinked, and they were gone. I felt like I could hear laughter in the back of my mind. That night, the knocks came again, but this time, I opened the door. I was sure I'd demand to know who was there. I found nothing but darkness. Then a voice came from behind me, low and chilling. It simply asked, "Why won't you remember?" I turned quickly, but there was no one there. I tried to shake it off, but each night was worse. I jumped at every sound. I stopped using my laptop after the glitches began. It felt like something was watching me. The whispers grew into indistinguishable murmurs. I had to do something. One evening, I called my old colleague. I wanted to know if he had heard anything strange. We talked about old times, but when I hung up, there was that knock again. Each knock felt like a finger tapping on my sanity. Then I heard it clearly. "Why are you still here?" I turned around and saw a shadow in the corner of my apartment. When I blinked, it was gone. I stood frozen, heart racing, knowing something was very wrong. I couldn't shake off that question. What was it? I felt trapped, a prisoner in my own skin. And all I could think was, why won't I remember? I barely got any sleep that night. The sound of my heartbeat echoed in my ears. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the next whisper to pierce the silence. Instead, I heard a different noise, a rustling sound outside my apartment. It started soft but grew louder. My instincts kicked in. I got up and crept toward the door, heart pounding. I hesitated for a moment, then peered through the peephole. What I saw sent ice through my veins. There were shadows moving, shifting on my floor. I felt exposed, but curiosity gnawed at me. I took a deep breath and swung the door open. The hallway was empty. I stepped into the dark, feeling the cold air wrap around me. I checked both directions, but there was no one in sight. Just my neighbor's door across the hall, seemingly still. I nervously scratched my foot against the floor. Suddenly, I caught something glinting in the dim light. A piece of paper lay crumpled at my feet. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and unfolded it. The handwriting was frantic, barely legible, but I could make out the phrases. "They are watching, and you need to remember." I looked around, feeling eyes on me, but it just felt empty. That S when I noticed that the door to the stairwell was ajar. I couldn't recall it being open earlier. Against my better judgment, I moved toward it. I paused, listening intently. If anything, there were whispers, but just beyond my hearing threshold. I took a step through the door, and suddenly, the whispering intensified, almost deafening. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, but my legs moved on their own. Down, down I went, half expecting someone to jump out at me. At the bottom of the stairs, the air felt colder. I stumbled into a small utility room, the light flickering. There were shelves full of cleaning supplies and old boxes, but something caught my eye. In one corner lay another notebook, thick and worn. I picked it up, feeling the weight of it in my hands. It felt oddly familiar, like I had held it before. I opened it cautiously, and my breath stopped. The pages were filled with names. My name was at the top. Next to it, a list of dates and notes, encrypted messages broken into easily readable statements. One stood out. Remember to find the truth. My head spun. Who had written this? Why was my name on there? I felt like I had walked into a trap. Then came a loud banging from behind me. I dropped the notebook, heart racing. It was coming from the stairwell door. I turned to see the shadows creeping closer, spilling into the room. The whispers became voices, echoing my own name. Remember! Remember! Panic surged through me. I bolted for the exit. As I pushed through the door, I slammed it behind me. I didn't stop running until I reached my apartment, slamming the door shut once more, panic surging through me. I leaned against the locked door, panting. I had a decision to make. I could ignore this, but a part of me, the part that felt like I was missing something crucial, urged me on. I had to find out what the whispers meant. I grabbed my phone and began to scroll through old contacts from the CIA, determined to reach out to someone who could help. When the lights flickered and went out completely. I stood in darkness. And I wasn't alone. I strained my ears, hoping to catch any sound in the darkness. The silence felt heavy, almost tangible. I could sense a presence, but I couldn't see. My heart raced as I stepped back slowly, trying to find my phone. The light from the screen would help. I finally found it, fumbling in my pocket, and turned it on. The screen flickered to life, but my fingers shook too much to hold it steady. I scanned the room, the beam of light sweeping over the walls, searching for movement, for anything that didn't belong. When I saw it, a shadow dart in the corner of my living room. My breath caught in my throat. I froze. The silhouette was no longer just a figment of my imagination. It shifted again, and I turned the phone toward it, illuminating the figure. Empty air met my gaze. Nothing. I wasn't sure if I had truly seen anything. Anxiety flooded my system. I instinctively moved toward the light switch, my hand trembling, praying that it would work. The click echoed in the dark. Nothing. I worked to calm my nerves. I could wait. I'd get through this. Maybe it was just the result of too little sleep. But as I turned back toward the room, the whispers returned, low and insistent. They wove in and out like a melody, each note pricking at my skin. Find the truth, remember. I backed away toward the kitchen, heart hammering, searching for anything I could use as protection. A knife? A frying pan? I found both. They felt inadequate but better than nothing. As I clutched my makeshift weapons, the whispers morphed into words and shadows. The phrase "you need to remember" hung in the air like a challenge. I headed for the front window, hoping to peer into the street below. Grabbing the curtain, I yanked it aside and looked out. The moonlight spilled across the pavement, but the street was empty. My heart sank again as I turned back to my apartment. When I noticed something sticking out from under my couch, a small, dark object. I dropped to my knees, peering beneath the furniture. I reached for it, pulling it into the light. A thumb drive. My mind raced. I had seen this before. One of my old cases, the ones I thought were buried deep. A name floated up: Thomas. He was my partner, the one who went missing during an operation years ago. The same case that haunted my dreams. I had to check it. I couldn't just leave the drive there, but first, I needed to make sure the coast was clear. I crept back into the living room, holding my breath, praying I wouldn't see the shadows again. Once at my desk, I inserted the drive into my laptop. The screen flickered as it recognized the device. I dug into files, each flicker of the screen accompanied by that damn whisper, "Remember." Then everything changed. Just as a folder opened, my laptop screen flooded with static. I cursed under my breath, tapping the keyboard, desperate to regain control. Suddenly, the whispers changed. "Time us up." A chill crawled down my spine. I yanked the drive out and leaped back, but the static didn't stop. My room felt like it was closing in. I had to get out. I reached for the door, ready to bolt into the hallway. But as I turned, the door swung open, revealing a figure framed in the dim light. I stumbled back, dropping the drive to the floor. "Who are you?" I gasped. The figure stepped forward and said something that made my blood run cold. "It's time you remembered everything." I stared at the shadowed figure, my heart racing like a wild animal. The voice was both familiar and foreign, wrapped in a fog of memories I couldn't grasp. I instinctively stepped back, my mind a flurry of thoughts. Was this a ghost? A figment of my sleep-deprived imagination? Thomas? I forced the name out, each syllable tasting bitter in my mouth. It had been 8 years since I'd last seen him, the day he vanished without a trace during a mission. "Time is running out," he repeated, his voice a low echo, sending chills through me. "You have to remember before it's too late." I shook my head, trying to process the reality of his presence. "You're not real!" I yelled, backing against the wall. The drive lay forgotten on the floor. He stepped closer, his features emerging from the haze of shadow. I could see the wear etched on his face, the familiar lines that once brought me comfort. But there was something off, something dangerous in his eyes. "I'm as real as the memories you've buried. You have to confront them. We didn't just disappear." I felt the room twist around me. "What do you mean?" "You were taken. I couldn't save you." "Save me? Or save yourself?" His words dripped with a tension that pulsed in the air. "You buried the truth. Now it's hunting you." I glanced around the room, feeling the weight of those whispers pressing in from the corners. "What truth? What are you talking about?" He pointed toward my laptop. "The drive," he said, urgency threading his voice. "It contains everything what we uncovered, what we were meant to stop. You have to look." With shaking hands, I reached down and picked up the drive, holding it tightly. "And then what?" "I don't remember." "You will. But first, you need to understand what happened that night." The static from the computer flickered eerily, a reminder of the chaos I'd felt moments before. I remembered fragments of that mission, bleeding out images of faces I didn't know, and a sense of danger that felt all-consuming. "Can you help me remember?" I asked, uncertain if I wanted to dive deeper into the abyss. "I can guide you," he replied, stepping even closer. "But you have to stay strong. Do not let it take you." I nodded, my resolve cupped in desperation. "Okay. Let us do this." Just as I turned back toward the laptop, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness again. My heart raced in the overwhelming blackness. "Thomas!" I shouted, my voice barely a whisper. But there was no response. The shadows crept closer as panic gripped me. I felt like a moth about to fly into a flame. That's when I heard a sound, the soft crackling of whispers merging into screams. I turned back, adrenaline coursing through my veins. A new wave of shadows coalesced against the far wall, and they began to morph into shapes I recognized, faces from the mission, twisted in anguish. "Remember," they echoed back, and I wanted to scream. I was trapped between the past and the present, with no clear way out. "Help me!" I yelled into the darkness, my breath quickening. Nothing answered but the growing cacophony. I snatched the drive again, the weight of it heavy in my hand. I had to uncover the truth. I had to remember. A sledgehammer struck my chest as the darkness thickened around me. I clutched the drive like a lifeline, trying to center myself against the pandemonium erupting from those faces. I retraced my steps to where the laptop flickered dully in the dark, its screen a stark reminder of everything I had buried. The whispers morphed into phrases I half understood. The files, the truth. They gnawed at my sanity, pulling me toward the very edge of memory. I hesitated, fear gripping my throat as I considered the consequences of digging deeper. Thomas, I whispered, willing him to come back, to guide me. The silence returned, hanging heavy like a storm cloud. I held my breath, feeling the weight of the shadows closing in. Okay, I muttered to myself. I needed to act. I took a deep breath and clicked the mouse, the laptop screen flooding the room with a cold light. Folders appeared one by one, titled with names and dates. My heart sank as I saw a document labeled Operation Abyss. It was the mission that broke us all apart, the one that took Thomas from me. With trembling fingers, I clicked on it. The file opened and revealed a timeline of events leading up to that night. I skimmed over the words, references to suspects, locations, and cryptic messages that made no sense. Then, one name jumped out like a neon sign: Dr. Elias Voss. My mind raced. He had been the heart of the operation, the one with secrets that ran deeper than any of us knew. I remembered the late-night discussions about him, how something felt off. But we had brushed it aside, too caught up in bravado. Just then, a loud knock echoed from the front door, so sudden that I nearly dropped the drive. I stiffened, glimpsing at the door as my pulse thundered in my ears. Who could be here at this time? My instincts screamed at me to hide. Don't answer it, I told myself, my thoughts racing. You need to focus. But the knocking persisted, more urgent now, as if it knew I was inside. I stood frozen, trapped between the drive's revelations and the imminent threat at the door. I looked back at the screen, but the shadows in the room seemed to shift and sway, warping the letters and words into horror. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Dr. Voss, whispers, knocks, they all blended together in a haunting symphony of chaos that I had a decision to make. The drive in my hands pulsed with unrealized truths, but the door held unknown danger. I couldn't forget Thomas's warning. Stay strong. Do not let it take you. My heart hammered in my chest as I approached the door cautiously, fingers curling around the doorknob. Each tick of the clock in the background echoed louder, drowning out the whispers that demanded my attention. One more second of hesitation. Then, a sudden crash from within the house sent me spinning. I turned back toward the laptop, my gut twisting. That wasn't just the door, it felt like something else had entered my life, something far more terrifying than I could comprehend. Someone was already inside. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I reached for the drive. I needed to know what was happening. I needed to know the truth. But the price for that knowledge had just become dangerously clear. I spun around, my breath quickening. The laptop flickered, but the screen felt like a portal to a past I wasn't ready to confront. I clutched the drive, my lifeline, as I backed away from the door. Whoever had entered, they had made a choice to step into my world, my dark, fragile world. A creak echoed from the hallway. Something heavy pressed down on my chest, a weight that threatened to crush me. I knew I couldn't stay still. I shot a glance at the corner of the room, where shadows loomed thick and dark, coiling like smoke. My instinct pulled me toward the back door. It was an escape route, but the thought of leaving the drive behind clawed at me. I was so close to the truth. I took a step towards the door, but first, I needed to figure out what or who I was dealing with. I quickly scanned the screen again, heart racing. Operation Abyss seemed to hold more than just the key to my past. What if it connected to whoever was in the house? My fingers fumbled over the keyboard, typing in Dr. Voss's name. As the search loaded, I caught something out of the corner of my eye. A figure, dark and blurred, slipped past the doorway. My breath caught. I wasn't alone, and it took everything in me to stay silent. The computer chimed, pulling me back. A new window opened, displaying a series of encrypted messages. My eyes widened as I read through snippets of conversations. Locate the asset, one message said. Another read, ensure he doesn't remember. Panic gripped me. Was I the asset? Did Dr. Voss play a role in my memory loss? A crash resounded from deeper inside the house, and I strained to listen. Footsteps. They were getting closer. I pulled the drive from the laptop, stuffing it into my pocket as I moved toward the back door. The chilling certainty that I needed to escape surged through me. The messages had unearthed a terrifying notion. I was part of this. I remembered things I wasn't meant to, and someone wanted them buried for good. I reached for the doorknob, heart thudding wildly. But the next sound was worse than I expected. A voice. A low, murky voice threaded through the air. "You can't hide forever, you know." I froze, dread washing over me. Familiar. The voice felt unnervingly familiar. My ears strained against the fear. It was like a ghost whispering my name, reminding me of nights filled with paranoia and dread. Then, everything went dark. The lights flickered, the laptop screen dimmed, and I was engulfed in sudden silence. I felt my back against the door, but fear held me still. In that moment, I was caught not in the dark, but in a web of unanswered questions. Was it Dr. Voss? Had he come for me? The drive pulsed in my pocket like a warning. With one last deep breath, I steeled myself. I needed to find out what had happened. Someone was in the house, and they weren't the only one with secrets. I turned toward the sound of the voice, feeling a mixture of dread and determination surge within me. The truth awaited, and I was ready to confront it. I took a cautious step forward, heart hammering in my chest. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting in ways that made my skin crawl. The voice lingered in the air, thick and oily. I needed to move, but my legs felt rooted in place. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice shaking. Silence swallowed my words. The faint click of a door creaking open echoed through the house. The sound seemed to swirl around me, amplifying my fear. I wanted to bolt, to flee through the back door, but something compelled me to stay. The drive was too important. In that moment of hesitation, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating fragile dust motes that floated like lost memories. I squinted into the hallway beyond my door, searching for any sign of movement. The dark figure slipped from my vision, just beyond the threshold. I twisted the doorknob, half expecting it to be locked, but it turned effortlessly. I peeked out into the hallway. Empty. I felt the suffocating weight of uncertainty pressing down. The risk of leaving the laptop behind gnawed at me. I had stumbled onto something significant, but was the danger worth it? A sudden noise erupted from the far end of the hall, a low thud, followed by a scuttling sound. I tightened my grip on the drive, the cold metal cutting into my palm. Panic surged anew. There was something or someone moving in my home. "Who's there?" I demanded, voice firmer this time. The air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. Then, through the dim light, the figure reappeared, stepping hesitantly into view. I gasped. It was a woman, her features obscured by shadow, but I recognized that silhouette. My heart stuttered as I took in her familiar stance, the way she slightly tilted her head. "Mara?" I whispered, half afraid I was losing my mind. Her eyes widened. "You shouldn't be here." Before she could finish, a door at the other end of the hall swung open. Another voice joined ours, a low growl that sent a chill racing down my back. "Mara! Come back!" She glanced over her shoulder, fear written all over her face. I instinctively stepped forward, reaching out. "What's going on? You know something?" "No!" she hissed, fear sending her voice into a tight whisper. "You don't understand. Leave now." Another crash reverberated through the house, drawing my attention. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't leave her. "Not like this." "Are you in danger? What's happening?" I pressed, gripping the doorframe as if it could anchor me. Her gaze darted between me and the direction of the voice, and in that split-second pause, I understood. I wasn't just in danger. I was part of something much larger, a tangled web that pulled her back into my life. The drive in my pocket felt like both a blessing and a curse. "Get out!" she pleaded, her voice urgent. "They're coming for you." Behind her, the presence loomed larger. Hope faltered. I had one chance to uncover the truth or face whatever threat lingered in the shadows. Then everything exploded. A figure lunged into the hallway, and I had to make a choice: run or confront the danger that threatened to unravel everything. My instincts roared back to life as I bolted toward Mara, heart pounding in my ears. I wasn't done yet. The truth could wait a little longer, but survival was now. I lunged forward, grabbing Mara's wrist just as the shadowy figure barreled into the hallway. It was a man, tall and imposing, eyes glinting dangerously in the light. My throat tightened. I couldn't let him take Mara. "Run!" I yelled, pulling her back as I shoved her toward the stairs. But she hesitated, staring at the man as if she'd seen a ghost. I had no time to wonder why. I could feel the air crackling with tension, a primal force urging me to act. The man advanced, fists clenched, growling under his breath. "Mara, you know you can't escape this." I shot a glance down the hallway, hunting for another route. The front door was too far away, and the open door behind the man offered a glimpse of a room cluttered with boxes. I clutched the drive in my pocket, grounding myself. It felt heavy with potential, but right now, I needed a way out. "Mara! We have to go! Now!" I tugged her closer, instincts screaming at me to escape. "Please," she began, but her voice faltered as the man took another step. Then, without warning, he lunged toward us, and I barely managed to pull Mara aside. He crashed against the wall, the force of his impact sending a deep tremor through our space. I couldn't think. I just reacted. I shoved Mara toward the stairs again, my focus narrow. "Go! I'll hold him off." Her eyes widened, guilt and fear swirling together. "No! I want to leave you!" "Mara!" Panic climbed in my chest. I spotted an old baseball bat leaning against the wall. With a surge of resolve, I darted toward it while keeping my eyes on the man, who was now recovering from his crash. I grabbed the bat and swung it in front of me. He sneered. "You think that's going to stop me? I'm not afraid of you," I shouted, adrenaline rushing through me. But my voice wobbled. I was terrified, and I could feel it seeping into my bones. In a blur, the man charged again, but this time I swung the bat with all my strength. It connected with his side and he stumbled back, surprise flashing across his face. "Mara, move now!" I shouted again as I held my ground, breathing heavily. She hesitated, then finally dashed up the stairs. I had mere seconds before he regained his composure. With a surge of urgency, I turned and sprinted after her. But just as my feet hit the bottom step of the staircase, I heard a low chuckle. "Running won't change anything, you know." I barely looked back, just pushed up the stairs as fast as I could. Mara was already waiting for me at the top, trembling but alive. "Where do we go?" she gasped. I glanced over the railing. The man was still at the bottom, eyes fixed on me with a predatory glint. "We can't stop. We need to find a way to the roof or out a window," I panted. Suddenly, the quiet creaking of the floorboards shifted my focus. A door swung open behind us, revealing another figure, a woman, with a fierce expression and black hair. "Come with me." She beckoned urgently, and my heart raced. That was when I knew the chaos wasn't just in the house. It was spilling into the streets, drawing us all into a darker game than we ever imagined. And as I followed Mara and the woman, I felt the weight of the drive I carried, a truth waiting to crash down around us. The woman led us down a narrow hallway, her footsteps quick and purposeful. I kept glancing behind, half expecting the man to burst through the door at any moment. Just as we reached the end of the hall, I heard a loud bang behind us. Our pursuer had finally charged up the stairs. "Stay close," the woman urged, her voice steady. Mara stumbled a bit, reeling from the shock of everything happening too fast. I reached out and grabbed her arm, pulling her along as we hurried through the doorway. We found ourselves in a dimly lit room filled with dusty furniture and discarded boxes. My pulse raced. This was no standard escape plan. The moment we stepped inside, the air felt thicker, as if the room held secrets we weren't meant to uncover. "Where are we?" I asked, trying to keep my voice low. "An old storage area," the woman replied, glancing toward the door. "We can hide for a moment, but we don't have long." He*s relentless. "Who is he?" I pressed, still trying to make sense of our situation. The flickering light from a single bare bulb overhead highlighted the worry in her eyes. "A man who wants something from Mara," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something she doesn't even know she has." I shot a quick look at Mara. She seemed paler than usual. "What does that mean? What does he want?" Before the woman could answer, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed outside. My heart sank. The man was getting closer. I glanced around, spotting a small window near the ceiling on the far wall. It was too high to reach easily, but it could be our only way out. "Help me with that window!" I shouted, pointing toward it. Mara's eyes widened, but she nodded, fear pushing us into action. We moved to the wall, using a stack of boxes as a makeshift platform. "Faster!" the woman urged, her eyes darting between the door and us. I climbed onto the boxes first, then helped Mara up right before I heard the door slamming against the wall and the man's low growl echoing through the room. As I lifted myself toward the window, I felt a rush of panic. I grabbed the frame, straining to pull myself up. Just then, Mara slipped, and I fumbled, nearly losing my grip. "Come on!" I shouted, panic fueling my voice. "I can't!" she cried, glancing toward the door where the man was now stomping into the room. I felt urgency swell in my chest. There was no time to waste. Then I saw a glint of something metallic amid the clutter on the floor. I pushed myself up further to get a better look and realized it was a small, shiny key. "Wait! The key!" I shouted, still struggling to pull myself up. "What does it unlock?" The woman's eyes lit up, but before she could respond, the man appeared at the door, his demeanor all fury and threat. I could feel the weight of impending doom pressing down on us. "Mara!" I yelled again, my voice breaking. "You have to trust me. Get to that window!" With a surge of determination, she scrambled again and lifted herself up, her fingers wrapping around the frame just as the man took a step forward. "Go! Now!" But as she hesitated, I shouted again to bring her focus back. "I will figure this out. Just get out." That was the moment everything inside me shifted. I might not know what the key was for, but I knew I had to act fast. I had no idea what awaited us on the other side of that window, but I could feel our lives hanging in the balance. With one last lurch, I finally pushed myself through the frame, landing on the other side just in time to see Mara clambering out. I glanced back, and there he was, looming in the doorway, fury written all over his face. "Run!" I shouted, urgency coursing through me as I took off in the direction of an alleyway that led to chaos and a new and terrifying beginning. The moment I hit the ground, a surge of adrenaline coursed through me. I glanced back at the window, expecting the man to leap through at any moment. Mara was right behind me, her breath quickening, eyes wide with panic. "Where do we go?" She grabbed my arm, and I felt the urgency lacing her words. "Just follow me," I nearly yelled. My heart raced as I sprinted down the narrow alley, dodging trash bins and loose cobblestones. The night air felt electric, filled with whispers of the urgency that surrounded us. We turned a corner, and the chaos of the street unfolded in front of us. People hustled past, unaware of the darkness lurking behind us. I felt exposed, adrenaline pushing me forward with every hurried step. As we pressed against the walls of buildings, I couldn't tell whether I was escaping the shadows closing in or running toward an even deeper darkness. The flashes of quiet laughter drifted out of the alley's depths. It seemed to beckon me to look back. But I couldn't risk losing Mara. "Do you think we lost him?" she asked, her voice low and trembling. "I don't know," I admitted. "But we can't stop now. We need to find shelter." Or before I could finish, I spotted a small, dimly lit diner across the street. It was a neon beacon amid the chaos. "In there!" I shouted, pointing. Without waiting for a response, I dashed across the road, making sure to glance back for any sign of the man. We slipped inside just as a cacophony of laughter erupted from the alley behind us. The diner enveloped us in its warm glow, but my instincts screamed that this was only a temporary reprieve. Inside, I pushed Mara toward the back booth, glancing around to ensure we weren't followed. The clatter of dishes and the smell of coffee mixed oddly with the feeling of dread simmering beneath my skin. "We need to talk," I said, sliding into the booth opposite her. "I don't understand any of this," Mara said, her voice shaky. "What is happening? Why was he after us?" I think I hesitated, recollecting the fragmented memories. "I think there's a connection between us and whatever I uncovered with Thomas. The drive, it's tied to everything. They don't want us remembering." Mara looked uncertain, glancing toward the diner's front door, as if expecting it to burst open. "What if they find us here? We can't stay." I nodded, my heart still racing, but I knew I needed clarity. "We need to uncover what the drive holds before we leave again." Suddenly, an idea sparked within me. "Wait! The key, the one I found. What if it opens something crucial?" I pulled the small metal key from my pocket and set it on the table between us. She stared at it, confusion mingling with apprehension. "What does it open?" "I don't know, but it feels important." "It was meant for something," I murmured. "Maybe it's our way to understanding everything." Just as we began piecing it together, a loud crash echoed from the alley outside, followed by the low growl of a voice I recognized too well. "You can't hide forever, you know." My blood ran cold. Mara's eyes widened, and I clenched my fists, the key feeling cold in my palm. "We can't wait here." As I rose, the diner's fluorescent lights flickered ominously. The whispers returned, filling my mind with echoes of the past. "Find the truth, remember," they beckoned out. We darted for the back exit, but something twisted deep in my gut. Had we truly lost him? Or were we walking straight into an even darker fate? The alley opened before us, but it felt like a threshold between two worlds, the world we thought we knew, and one full of answers that remained buried. With Mara beside me, I plunged into the night that awaited, knowing we wouldn't just confront the chasing shadows, we'd also face whatever haunted us from the darkness of our pasts. As we stepped back outside into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the truth lay just ahead, or perhaps more questions, waiting to pull us deeper into the murky depths of memory and danger. And like always, I wondered, was I ready to remember? Would I truly want to? All I knew was that the hunt had only just begun.